Evan McLaughlin. I'm a content marketing specialist with Minitab. We want to thank you for joining our webinar today, What's New in Minitab 19. I'll hand it over to our expert presenter, Jenn Atlas, in a few moments, but first, just a few housekeeping notes. The webinar audio is available through your computer. It's computer audio, not a dial-in number. So for the best audio quality, please make sure your speakers or headsets are turned on and the volume is up. Some networks cause slides to advance more slowly than others, so you might see a slight delay. You can try logging off your VPN to help if you see that issue, or try closing GoToWebinar and logging back in. And don't worry, nonetheless, we will have a recording of this. This is being recorded, so we'll send you the presentation slides and the recording by email after the webinar is over. That also helps if you want to review anything later, or if you want to share it with your team. Look out for that email in your inbox. So your mics are muted, but feel free to enter questions at any time. You should be able to see that questions pane on the right in your GoToWebinar controls. And you can also undock it if you want to make it bigger to type out your question or anything like that. So I have myself and a couple of my colleagues here answering questions throughout, so feel free to enter questions. We might be reserving some of them toward the end as well, if we see that that there's a good question that it would benefit for everybody to hear the answer to. And also, just to make this a bit more interactive, we'll have a couple polls that Jen's going to present to you soon. So please go ahead and answer those in the polling pane and GoToWebinar when you see them come across. They'll help us guide the conversation for you. And after the webinar is over, if you could stay tuned when it closes out, you'll see an exit survey pop up. We really appreciate it if you have a few minutes to answer those questions. Let us know, your interests, or if you'd like us to contact you. So now, to introduce our presenter for today, Jenn Atlas. Jenn is an expert statistician with over 20 years experience in the quality improvement and consumer goods industries. And again, we have a lot to cover, and I want to make sure we get to all your questions. So without further ado, Jenn, let's see what's new with Minitab.
Excellent. Thank you, Evan. So before we get started, I have just a couple questions just to get a sense of where we're all at. So the first question is, what version of statistical software are you using, of Minitab specifically? We'll see as the answers come through. We'll give it a couple seconds for you to answer. I don't expect many of you to be on 19 yet. All right, it looks like we've got our answers in here. It looks like the bulk of the audience is on Minitab 18, fantastic. Still some 17 users as well, and 16, so great. One more question, so the last one. I'm just interested in what area do you primarily use Minitab? Are you in the quality field? Are you in product development, business analytics? Just to get a sense of where the audience is at today. As you're filling this out, stay tuned after the webinar too. If you'd like to add any further comments on how you use it, we'll have an exit survey so you can add some more information there. Okay, we'll give it a couple more seconds. All right, nice. Okay, nice range, mostly quality, but business analytics, process validation, fantastic. Excellent. All right, so now to the good part. First of all, thank you everyone for taking time out of your day, your evening, no matter where you are, to spend some time with us to learn about what's new in Minitab 19. You're probably familiar with us as an organization, but at Minitab, we really believe that regardless of what your background is in data analytics or statistics, that everyone, you're empowered when you have easy to use software to use. And one thing we really pride ourselves on at Minitab is providing tools that are easy to use, intuitive, but also useful. If you can't gain meaningful insight from your data, it's not really that useful. So within Minitab, we're really excited to show you Minitab 19. Really delivers on our commitment to really help users analyze data, really get to that actionable insight, self-serve, easy to use software and analytical tools really help support that. Okay. So what I'm going to do today is go through the new features of Minitab 19, talk specifically about them, and then I'll show you a demo towards the end to show you actually what it looks like in action. Okay, so new features and improvements in Minitab 19. So you can see that there's a lot of things in here. The main improvement that I think that you'll see in Minitab 19 is the improved interface. One thing that, like I said, is we pride ourselves on ease of use and really making it easier for both existing users to use the system, but also getting new users into the system. Is we watch people, we do a lot of studies where we watch people analyze data using our software. And we noticed that people struggled a little bit with navigating output, managing their output. It's pretty easy to find tools in Minitab, but then when you get a lot of output and graphs, people didn't navigate as well as we thought they were navigating. So we really made some pretty big improvements on that interface. Some nice statistical additions as well as some performance improvements. Let's get to those. So as I said, the major difference between release 18 and release 19 is a better workspace. So really trying to simplify that interface, just making it easier for their power users who are in the software all the time, or the infrequent user who's in maybe once a week or once every few weeks, just to help them navigate that. So you'll notice on the left side, you have an anchored navigator. Very easy to turn that navigator on and off with that little button right at the bottom left corner. Your worksheets are now tabbed worksheets. You have an output pane, and I'll get into more details with this. Also cleaning up some of the menus and toolbars, and we'll talk about that. So I always think about Minitab starting off with data. So you need to have some data to analyze, and one thing we understand is that a lot of our users are Excel users. And we're never going to insult Excel. I'm not going to tell you that you shouldn't use Excel. Excel is a wonderful tool and it's got its place. But most of our users then need to take their data either from Excel or from other sources, bring it into Minitab. And because Excel is so familiar, having our tabbed interface, our tabbed worksheets now really makes it easier for existing users to find and manage those worksheets, but also figuring out how to add a worksheet is very easy because it's very much like what you're familiar with. So within those tabbed worksheets, there's functionality that's discoverable in that right mouse click. So there's right mouse click on the tab, and there you'll find familiar things like renaming a worksheet or deleting the worksheet. That's also where you'll find your worksheet information, which will give you information about how many columns you have, any missing values, that kind of thing. You can also right mouse click in the worksheet itself to access a lot of that familiar functionality like conditional formatting and things that have been in release 18 and actually some of the 17 versions as well. So once you have data in Minitab, then it comes time for the analysis. In Minitab 19, we have a new output pane. The output pane replaces the session window. We've watched users struggle. The session window in 18 and previous versions, we always said that, well, that has your text output and any graphical display or graphical components. Usually they popped up separately, and then you manage that using a different toolbar. We made the change that in Minitab 19, we have an output pane, and the output pane, basically more logically, has your output all together. So any table output that you have, any model fits, but any graphical output, that's all going to be in the same window. So there's no longer going to be the need to find, the graph that corresponds with some analysis. It's going to be right there. The other component about the output pane, or that's nice, is, and I'll show you this in a second when we get into the software, is within that output, you'll be able to see the name of the worksheet that corresponds to the output that you're looking at, but also knowing if those results are current. So one thing that we've always had on our graphics was some indication that if the graph was out of date. And what I mean by that is if the data changed that was used to create that graph, you got some indication. You either had a yellow construction symbol on it, something that told you that something wasn't right. But we never had that for the session output. You never had that for tables. Now with Minitab 19, you'll know if results are out of date, you'll see that as part of your output. So you'll no longer look at a t-test and wonder if it matches the data. It will give you some indication. For some of our tools, you can update the results in place and automatically update. For the other tools, you'll have to create new, but we'll show you what that looks like. So also with the output pane, there's the context menu. And those of you who've been using 18, you're probably familiar with this already. When I hover over a graph or a table, there's the little arrow that pops up. Context menu is the same thing as right mouse click. But you'll see that here you'll get some functionality. This is where you'll send to Word or PowerPoint. We've also added the ability to send to Companion, which is our project management, project execution tool. Other functionality like editing your graph and brushing is where you'll access this as well. So the output pane, like I said, a nice improvement, replacing the session window. Your output, your tables, your graphs will all be together. Another feature that we added is the idea of adding more updatable commands. So what I mean by this is that when you made a graph, certain graphs or control charts in Minitab 18 or prior, you had the option to update that graph. So if the data had changed, you could update that graph. It's an important feature, and it's something our customers value. We've added the ability to update even more commands. So we started with the ones that we think are most popular, things like your graphical summary, Pareto charts, capability. Now when the data changes for that tool, you'll get the option that you could update those results, or you can just create new results, which will just create a copy in the project. So once you've got your data in, you've got some output, the next thing you need to do is manage it. And that's where the new navigator comes in. So the navigator is really there to help you manage and organize your work. It's a dedicated navigator. It always will pop up on the left side, and you can open and close that to maximize real estate in your workspace. What's nice about that navigator is you'll be able to group commands by worksheet. So you'll have when you have your list of output, you'll be able to sort that and find things easier. And you can see that we can sort oldest to newest, newest to oldest by command name. It's easy to just toggle that view on and off. So very easy to manage your output, to find any output that you're looking at. What the other nice thing is being able to close up groups of output by worksheet. So when you have a lot of output, you can see that view, and we'll take a look at that. I think the most exciting update in Release 19 is the idea of the split view. So another thing, when you're analyzing data and you want to compare some results, it's important to with graphs in Minitab, you were able to put graphs in a side-by-side view and drag them around. But within the session window, it was harder to see if you wanted to compare model fits or pieces like that. Now what we've got is a really easy way from within that navigator. You just right mouse click on something and choose split view. And what that will do is basically split that output pane into 2 or 4 or how many splits you do. So you can easily do a side-by-side evaluation. This will be great for evaluating the effect of an outlier, seeing what, just different analysis might be, comparing different responses, whatever it might be. Very easy to view your results right within Minitab in a simple view. So we'll take a look at the navigation when we open up Minitab in just a bit, but let's talk a little bit about some of the statistical enhancements that we've made within 19. So really key to Minitab, like I said, is making things easier for people. So when you're doing some analysis, how can we make it easier? You'll see that some of these enhancements, adding a visualization to the correlation matrix plot, visualizations to the regression analysis. Like I said, some model selection criteria for those more advanced users, incorporating binary response, capability and bootstrapping. Let's take a look at some of these. So when you do correlation, and remember that correlation measures the degree of linear association between two variables. Whenever we're teaching it, we always say, okay, if you're going to look at a correlation coefficient, it's important to also look at a graph. But we never made the graph for you. We always, said you had to make the graph separately. Now we make the graph. So when you do a correlation, you'll automatically get that matrix plot, which will give you that visual so you can see what that relationship looks like, as well as give you those correlations. Likewise with regression. So with regression, people often fit a model, and when you're doing something like a fitted line plot, it's easy to see if the model fits because it's just one X and you can see, how well it fits the Y. But when you have a lot of X's and a more complicated model, you want some way to be able to communicate to other people on your team, people, in terms of what factors are significant and what's the impact, which ones are the big hitters. The Pareto plot, which we've always used with design of experiments, is a great tool to just a real simple visualization. Very rarely do people really want to see all of our p-values, right? So the Pareto of the effects will come up with regression. So just a nice visual to show you which terms are significant in a model. Another improvement that we worked on with 19 is the model selection criteria. So when you're fitting models and you have a lot of models, you know that in the model selection and the model dialogues, you always had the stepwise button. And actually, we've added that, I think, around in the 17 releases. And what the stepwise button does is lets you, choose a method to help pick a model. So when you have a lot of X's and you have interactions and more complicated things, it's hard sometimes to manually fit the best model. Stepwise allows you to auto-fit that model. The way you decide to pick that model, we've added something called the forward information criteria. And this will be one of the drop-downs under the method. And that includes the Kaiki's criteria, the AICC, and also the BIC criteria. So we think this is a nice method, more modern method to help you choose your models. Thinking about design of experiments, one thing that we see a lot when people are analyzing or creating factorial designs or response surface or even screening designs is people don't always have a continuous response as their measurement, in terms of what they're measuring. A lot of times you'll have some responses that are continuous, but you also have a categorical response. In this case, something like I might be measuring something like yield stress for bars of soap, but then I also know, how many logos were smudged. So combination of where I have binary responses, where it's a yes, no, a logo might be smudged or not, but also some continuous responses where I've got some average that I'm looking at. We've added the ability to analyze that binary response for DOE. Now, we've always had logistic regression. We've had it for a while, binary logistic regression. But what's nice about this improvement is that now we've built this tool right into the factorial design, screening, and response surface platforms, so you can easily analyze that model right within that DOE platform. The benefit of that is response optimization. So when you get to that point where you need to optimize both your continuous and binary response, very easy to do that now with Minitab 19. That was a more difficult thing to do with Minitab 18. For those people in quality, we've made some nice improvements to the normal capability command. So there's a lot of things here listed. One of the things we've done is we added a global option to display either parts per million or percents, and also just display the confidence intervals. So the default output for capability was always parts per million. And while that's nice for some people in manufacturing, there's a lot of people who just prefer to look at things in terms of percents, and they wanted to set that as an option. So now you can do that. We'll talk about where the options is in just a couple minutes. Providing the confidence intervals. So confidence intervals for your parts per million, out of spec is something that we've also added in release 19. We've also added two-sided and one-sided interval options for confidence intervals. You might be thinking, I think you already had that. We kind of did. We had the option where you could say lower bound or upper bound, but that had some complications with it. So now to kind of give you everything you want, we have the option now. When you choose one-sided confidence interval, we'll give you that one-sided, and sometimes you want an upper bound for some things and a lower bound for others. So you'll get all that. So overall, like I said, quite a few changes within that capability platform. Small changes, but things that people have been requesting for a couple of years now. Another statistical addition that we made was something called resampling and bootstrapping. So you use bootstraps to examine the sampling distribution of a statistic and to estimate a confidence interval for a population parameter. This is primarily an academic tool, but it can also be used in some of our applications in commercial. It's located under the calc menu, but it's a nice tool, and you'll see the bootstrapping output here on the right. It's a nice tool to when you're illustrating the point of distributions and the idea of random sampling and bootstrapping. So again, primarily an academic addition, but I think there are some applications within even engineering where if we don't know what the distribution of a statistic is, we're trying to estimate an interval. It's pretty nice. So while we worked on the interface for Minitab and really improving that user experience, another thing we wanted to improve was just the usability of the system. And part of that was the speed and how fast the application moved. We made some changes to graph editing and some other pieces here as well. But really, like I said, it was about cleaning up the interface and really improving the experience, but it was also really improving the application as a whole. So there's a lot of things under the covers that we really improved on in terms of speed and performance that really is going to be necessary in today's modern world where we just keep having more and more data coming into us. So one thing we did was we incorporated the graph editing and brushing improvements. So the graph editing is now in that context menu. You can also double click on a graph to bring that up. So a little bit more discoverable for users, and you'll see the toolbar very similar to what we had before. The brushing, and remember brushing, if you're not familiar with it, is when I want to highlight individual points on a graph, I can brush those points. I can do that now via that context menu. But the one thing we've added is the ability to set ID variables is now part of the brushing palette. Now, for those of you power users, you probably maybe knew that this functionality was there. You had to brush some points, then right mouse click and choose set ID variables. Maybe you discovered it on your own, or maybe someone showed you at one point, but it wasn't something that people kind of found naturally. So we exposed that and made that much more discoverable, where as soon as you brush some points on a graph, you'll see the different columns in terms of your data. The other benefit is this third bullet here is that when you do brush this, the worksheet that you're brushing on will come into view and will scroll to whatever the current row numbers are that you're brushing. It's a nice addition. Simple, it's definitely simplified. So another improvement that we looked at was our menus. we had a lot of menus, and some of our menus, I would say, maybe not great. We always have the edit menu, but then we also had an editor menu. And if you've ever tried to use Minitab to explain to someone what's under the edit menu versus the editor menu, it just became kind of confusing. So what we've done is we've actually removed three menus in terms of menu dropdowns. Functionality was all rearranged to make it more discoverable. We really wanted to improve the usability. So actually, quite a bit of functionality is moved underneath the file menu now. So remember the options. So just before, when I was talking about the capability analysis and that you could set the global option, that was usually under the tools options setup, but that's where Minitab put it. It's good practice to put things under like any kind of preferences underneath the file menu. So now you'll find all the options underneath the file menu, and that's how you'll access them. That's also where you'll access related documents. It's where you can manage profiles, your file security. For those macro users, this is where you can run an exec as well. We've also, in terms of our usability and cleanup, we added a new menu, and the new menu is called the View menu. That View menu contains some of the things that you knew before, the toolbars and the Customize is where you'll find those and where you'll view those. But this is also where you can set some of your navigation. So I think most users will use the navigation the way I'm going to show you here in just a couple minutes, in terms of just clicking on different toggles to toggle the view. But if you prefer menu dropdowns, you have the view where you can view the navigator, and you can see the different combinations of data and output in this. We'll also, Zoom is here as well, but this is also where you can access the command line and history. So another improvement that we made is the way people view the command line and the history. So that command line and history is now viewed in a single pane. So for those of you who are not sure what the history window even is, that's fine. So the history window in Minitab is something that Minitab, even though we drive everything mainly from dialog boxes, there's still the code underneath the scenes that we run when we submit a dialog box. And that was always in the history window. And we would tell users, oh, take a look in the history window to see things like what kind of commands were issued or where files were opened from. And that's still true. And you can see that history is just going to keep a track of everything you do in terms of when you open files, when you save files, where you save them to, what kind of commands you issue. The command line is a way to submit code via not using dialogues. If you just want to type up commands, it's not the way most of our users use the software, but it is possible for those of you power users who write your own macros and write programs to do this. Very easy to take pieces of history code and copy it to the command line and rerun it and resubmit it there. So the way you access that is now underneath that View menu. So under the View, you'll see the command line history, and you could just toggle that on and off. So we've made quite a bit of performance enhancements, and I'll talk about those in just a second. But one thing we did change is the file extensions. So this is more boring. I don't know if this really matters, but the file extensions, in Minitab 18 and previous versions, Minitab projects were .mpj. Minitab worksheets were .mtw. In Minitab 19 and going forward, Minitab projects now have the extension .mpx. And Minitab worksheets have the extension .mwx. This won't make really any difference in terms of you opening your files. Minitab will still be able to open projects and worksheets from release 18, 17, and 16. But when you do hit file save, you'll be saving these new projects as .mpx. So it won't overwrite the MPJ files that you have. It will just save a new one that has this new format going forward. So I said we made quite a few performance enhancements. One of the things we looked at, as like I said, as data is getting bigger and bigger and customers are telling us their data sets are getting larger, we wanted to improve performance. And one of the things we did was add a 64-bit version. So Minitab is now available in 64-bit, which basically allows you to use more of your available memory on your computer. We've also made quite a few improvements to some of the methods. So the linear model methods, we improved that algorithm so that release 19, you'll notice that we're getting results and twice as fast as being conservative. It's a lot faster for most of the methods, where you'll see improvements to your regression, logistic regression, Poisson regression, stepwise models. We're opening Excel files faster. When you open files that have a date format, I didn't know this, but evidently that's harder than just opening regular files that just have data and text. The Excel files open much faster in release 19 than they did in 18 and in previous versions. Most of the graphs, you'll notice, at least 5 times faster in terms of how they're rendering. So depending on how much data you have when you're doing your analysis, you might notice some pretty significant improvements. Let me go over to Minitab and show you some of the improvements that I'm talking about with the navigation. I'm watching the audience view on the webinar, so I apologize for the pauses, but I'm just making sure that people can see things before I start talking. All right, so I think you can see my screen. So this is Minitab 19. I think the first thing you'll notice is it's a much cleaner look. So for existing users, it looks pretty familiar. If I toggle off that navigator, this looks a lot like Minitab 18. So basically that view where your data is on the bottom and the session was on the top, it's no longer the session, it's now the output pane. But it's still the same idea, where you can view your results in a nice, easy way. Okay. So those tab worksheets. So here you can see I have a few tab worksheets here. Very easy to add new worksheets by just clicking on this plus. Also, I can sort my worksheets. So just clicking on it and sorting those tabs. So very easy to navigate and access those. If I take a look in, well, let me generate some output. Let me do a quick analysis. If I generate a display descriptive statistics, and I'll just do something simple where I add a few graphs. And as I create the analysis here, I'm just doing, like I said, very simple descriptive statistics. And descriptive statistics includes both, the table, but also graphical displays that I've added here. And notice that the output pane here, I can view these things together. Now, as far as navigation, so I'll show you the navigator in just a second. In the lower right corner is where it's really easy. This is very similar to what we had under that view menu that we just talked about. In this view, I'm in the data and the output, which means I'm seeing my data on the bottom, and I'm seeing output up on the top. The second view allows me to view my data only. So if I just want to view my data, it's very easy to go into that. And if I just want to view my output, that's that third button that just looks like a square. That will take you into a view where you only show your output. And depending on how big your screen is or your monitor, graphs will display side by side as you see mine do here. If their graphs are too big, then they'll wrap around down to the bottom. So it just depends on how big your monitor is and how much you resize the graphs. All right, so I'm going to toggle the navigator back on. So in the lower left corner is where we toggle on that navigator. So very simple. So that status bar across the bottom of the application is really all you need to know for navigation with Minitab. So accessing the views of, like I said, on the left side is just your navigator, toggling it on and off. Down on the right side is the view of how do you want to look at your output. Do you want to look at the data in the output, the data, or just the output? So here's that navigator. And you can see that the navigator here, that default view is just to show the list of all that functionality, or list all the commands. But here what I'm going to do is click on that little arrow right next to the navigator and choose Group Commands by Worksheet. And what that allows me to do is see my different command output for each worksheet. So much easier to organize and create these pieces. And like I said, you can close up pieces if you get a lot of output. And it's all single click functionality. So no longer have to remember when to double click or when to single click like we had in previous versions, release 18 and 17. Now you just click on the different component of the output and it will bring it right up. You still have your familiar tricks like Control D, which brings your current data window up to the front. And here you can see I've got this Pareto chart. And again, I'm just watching my audience view, so it looks like my computer's kind of keeping up. There it goes. So here you can see I've just got a Pareto chart, and here I've got a table. If I zoom in a little bit on there, you can see where I've just got some data. I'm going to go ahead and change some of the data. So here I'm going to go ahead and change the reason for one of the customer complaints to a different number. I'm just going to go ahead and increase that number. And notice when I enter that data and hit return, and I'm just watching the computer keep up, in my output, you'll see, besides the fact that a couple things about the output that's nice. One is that you'll see that at the top of the output is the worksheet name. That worksheet name is the worksheet that corresponds to that analysis, and it keeps up. If I change the name of this worksheet, it will update this as well. So seeing that is nice because you'll always know which piece of output corresponds to your data. But also notice that now I've updated this Pareto and it says my results don't use current data. The Pareto chart is one of the tools that we improved that allows you to come back and update that. So you can see that here I can update these results, which will update in place. Or I can create new results, which will just make a copy in my navigator. The other thing we can do, like we've been able to do with some of the other graphs in release 18 previous, is the option to update results automatically. So if I click on this menu, the main drop down here by Pareto, you'll see that one of the options is to update results automatically. And when I do that, not only does it update, but then I get that note that just tells me, hey, these results are going to be automatically updated as data changes. So much better in terms of communicating, letting the user know not only where their data comes from, making sure that the graphs and the output are obviously together, but knowing when things are current. When data changes, you want to know about it and you want to have the option to update. You don't always want to update things automatically, but so we give you that flexibility where it's really your choice. I'm going to go back over to the presentation. So there's a lot of nice improvements. I definitely would encourage you to download the trial if you don't already have it within work. There's a free trial at minitab.com. It's a 30-day full working version. It won't matter if you have release 18 or 17 on your computer already. There's not an issue with that. The other thing that we have new with Minitab is we're releasing it on Macintosh. So we used to have it on a Mac years ago. Well, now it's back. So Minitab, in July, we will have a Mac version of Minitab available. So you'll see much of the very familiar functionality. You'll see that this is a snapshot of the Mac version, very familiar. The worksheets tabbed across the bottom, dedicated navigator, the output pane that has your results. The other nice thing about the Mac version is that it won't matter if some people at the organization are using Mac and some are using Windows. The project will be able to open no matter what. So if I start a project on Windows and I save it and send it to Evan and he's on a Mac, he'll be able to open that up with no problem. So a couple other things that just kind of go with the Minitab release. One is the Quality Trainer. So Quality Trainer is our e-learning tool, and the Quality Trainer has been updated for release 19. So it now runs on HTML as platform. It used to be on Flash, but we're off that. But we've also, for global teams, we now offer it in Spanish, Chinese, and Portuguese with an English voiceover. So it makes it, just gives you added flexibility. There are really nice management tools too with this for organizations who want to keep track of the lessons that people have run and quizzes and stuff like that. Certainly we could give you more information on that. The other product that we have is Companion, and Companion, like I said, is our project execution visibility tool. Working with Companion is a little easier now with Minitab 19. So we're working towards better integration, and some of those first few steps is being able to send output from Minitab directly into Companion. So now when you're creating your output in Minitab and you want to put that output into your Companion project roadmap, you can just right mouse click or click the context menu and send to Companion. We also have the ability within Companion to insert Minitab projects right into the Companion roadmap, so you don't have to leave Companion to do that. And also within Companion, we have the Monte Carlo simulation, the process optimization tool. You could actually directly import your Minitab models that you fit in Minitab 19 into Companion. So that saves you a little bit of aggravation, not having to cut and paste that stuff. So we're going to get to some questions that you've been asking in just a couple minutes. You know, at Minitab, like I said, it doesn't matter where you are on your analytics journey. I don't care if you're just starting to make graphs and that's where you've started on that. I don't care, you know, if you're fitting pretty complicated predictive models. We acquired Salford Systems a few years ago as part of our dedication to helping people across the span of if you're just starting and you need help getting started in terms of what tool to use. That's what things like the assistant menus there for to help users. Or if you're doing very sophisticated analysis and predictive analytics, we've got tools for that as well. Okay. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Evan to say a quick few words about Minitab and our company products and services, and then we'll move on to the Q&A session to answer some of your questions.
Great, thanks, Jen. Yeah, I think a good thing about these What's New webinars is a lot of you are already familiar with Minitab, but I'll go ahead and share a few words in case there's anybody catching up or needing a refresher. So for nearly 50 years, Minitab has been a leading provider of quality improvement and statistical analysis software. Minitab statistical software has actually been used in implementing countless improvement initiatives around the world. And as you see on the logos here, we help 9 out of the top 10 Fortune 500 companies and over half of the Fortune 500 overall. And our products. In addition to Minitab statistical software for data analysis, we have SPM. As Jen mentioned, we acquired Salford Systems, and that's Salford Predictive Modeler, our platform for machine learning and predictive analytics. There's Companion by Minitab for continuous improvement project management, and Quality Trainer, an online statistics e-learning course with animated lessons, quizzes, hands-on exercises. And Jen just spoke about that a moment ago, so if you're interested in that, definitely let us know. In the services area, we offer training year-round, and you can also bring a Minitab trainer to your company to teach your staff. And you can learn more about that and our other statistical consulting services at minitab.com/training. I'd also encourage you to explore minitab.com/support. You can find helpful videos on all our software, contact information for our world-class technical support team, our blog, data sets, online help for all of the software, and much more. And we'll send you links in the presentation we send out in a few days as well, just in case you weren't able to catch those. And also, we love to plug our yearly Minitab Insights Conference. Get ready to share your knowledge, expand your statistical analysis and quality improvement skills, and network. This is our flagship user conference where you can meet and see presentations from experts. This year we have Lockheed Martin, Hertz, Ford, Edward Jones, and more. If you go to info.minitab.com/insights and click on the speakers and program, you'll be able to see everybody who we have speaking right now. We'll also have expert advice in the Minitab lab, and we're bringing back the user-centered design studio for the second year. That's where you can see the future of Minitab software, ask questions, give your feedback on what helps you run experiments, etc. Last year it was great. We asked people a lot of questions about Minitab 19. So definitely visit the user-centered design studio this year and see what we can show you next. We'll also have the second annual golf tournament, and this year for the first time we're offering pre-conference workshops. They're listed in the bullet points here. So those are available for an added fee, and you can also see those on info.minitab.com/insights. We're really excited to be presenting those. Jenn will be there. A few of my colleagues will be there. I'll be there. We'd all love to meet you guys. So go to info.minitab.com/insights for more information, and be sure to register by July 31st to get the $100 off early bird rate. And before I hand it back over to Jenn for a Q&A, I just wanted to remind everyone, this is being recorded. So if you need to drop off or review anything later, please look out for that email in your inbox next week. Also, don't forget, we'll be sending you a couple questions after the webinar is over. So if you wanted to expand on what types of analysis you use Minitab for, or let us know if you are interested in some other Minitab software, or just need help on something, we definitely give you the opportunity to contact us in that exit survey as well. Cool. Yeah, Silvana, Eric, and I have been doing as best we can answering all your questions, but I know we have a lot of good ones that Jenn would love to cover for everyone here, so I'll hand it over to you, Jenn.
Thanks. Yeah, there was one, I was just looking at some of them. Thanks for everyone, again, for taking the time out of your day. We really appreciate it. I forgot to show the split view. So I knew there was one other thing I wanted to show before I came back over. But before I show the split view, one of the questions was, what is unknown worksheet? That's a great question. Unknown worksheet was, I had another worksheet and I had an analysis done for this. And then I decided that it wasn't that interesting and I took it out. So I deleted the worksheet. So basically this is a piece of output that corresponds to something that the data doesn't exist anymore because I deleted it. So if you delete a worksheet, we don't delete the output that goes with it, but we don't know where to put it. So it's just under the unknown worksheet section. Great question. The split view. So if I look at the split view, let's say I'm looking at some output here. So here's a capability report in descriptive statistics. To go into the split view, all you have to do on the navigator is just right mouse click on the piece of output that you want to split and choose Open in Split View. And what that does is pops you into the automatic split so you can see the view. Letting the computer catch up on the audience view so you can see that. And here I've split, just one, so just lay it two things, but you can split as many times as you like. We don't really have a limit on how many splits you can do. It's really, I think, going to depend on how good, how big your screen is in terms of your monitor. The other thing you can do is once you put things into a split view, is then you can drag that order around in terms of how you split. So right now, if I want to move the thing into the middle and make that the thing to the left, all I'm doing is clicking on it and dragging it over, and I can drop that off, and that will drop that and reorganize that order. So again, just clicking on the tab and just dragging it over to the left or wherever you want to, drag it to, and that will change that view. And then once you've made your evaluation in split view and you want to just go back into the regular view, there's a couple ways to do that. You can close up the other tabs, or you can just click on the arrow. So next to each tab of output, there's a little drop down, and you can just click on that and choose unsplit view. And what that will do is take you out of the split view, close up the other views, and it will just, like I said, put you back into that main view. Okay. Another question that we received was, will the six-pack report remain the same? The answer is yes. So the capability six-pack, which is probably one of our more popular tools, is the same, yes. Like I said, so that split screen, very easy. You just right mouse click and choose split, open in split view, and that's how you do that. Okay. Okay. Some questions about the Mac version compared to the PC. The Mac version has most of the functionality. There's two things it doesn't have in the V1 version of Mac. One is the assistant menu. The other is the graph editing capability. We'd love to hear your feedback on that in terms of if you are interested in the Mac, do you use the assistant menu? And how important is graph editing in terms of prioritize? The plan is that we're obviously going to add everything and make these things equal, but just that order of how we do that is something that we're always looking to hear from our customers, what's more important to them. All right. One of the questions was, is there training available for the companion Monte Carlo tool? We don't have formalized training, but certainly reach out to us. We're happy to help you understand that tool. On the website, on our website, there is on the support page, there is for companion a video about Monte Carlo simulation, and it walks through an example. So we have quite a bit of support material. And at the same time, I should mention that, keep in mind Minitab help is updated for release 19. So you've got a lot of good resources and things to kind of help get you started. But the help will certainly be able to explain some of the new features that we've got in there. So if you're looking for explanations there. There was a question that can we tile two graphs that were created apart from each other? Yes, that would be just like any other split view that you can put those graphs in a split view where I can, like I said, just right mouse click on those two graphs, different items, and put them in a split view, and you'll be able to put them in that side-by-side view. One of the questions is the maximum number of graphs still 300? I'm not positive, but I don't think so. We will definitely post this presentation so you'll have the recording. Can you view graphs from different worksheets side by side? Yes, absolutely. So it doesn't matter what the output is. If it's in the navigator, you can put it in a side-by-side view. Okay. So will Minitab 19 have a corresponding Minitab Express? Minitab Express was updated a few months ago. So there is still Minitab Express. And for those people who aren't familiar with that, that's our tool for academic, for students and teachers. It's a much simplified version of Minitab. The idea behind adding the randomization bootstrapping tests was that it makes those users who are using Express might just be able to use Minitab for everything now. But yeah, but Express still exists for academic. A question about the backwards capability. So can 18 users open an MWX? Minitab does not have backwards compatibility. So when you have a file that's a Minitab worksheet that's saved in 19, you're not going to be able to open that in a previous version. But what you can do always is for Minitab worksheets, you can always save Minitab worksheets down with a different file format. So I can save that worksheet as, and save it as an Excel file, XML, CSV, or text. So you can save those in that other format, and then Minitab 18 will be able to open that format. To get updates, how do you get the updates? It depends on your license. If you have an annual license with Minitab, then you'll when your license coordinator updates that, you'll automatically get that. If you have single copies, there are ways to purchase upgrades for that, and you can contact our sales team. Actually on the Minitab website, there's a button, Talk to Minitab. You can click that, and there's a form that you submit, and they'll reach out to you. One of the questions was the updated chart in the output pane update, or is it a new chart added to the scroll? No, when you update a chart, so if the data had changed and you update the chart, so let me close this other one. So if I'm in a Pareto and I change some data, let me take off automatic update for a second. So the question was, if I made a Pareto and the results and I shut off automatic update, so then I get the choice when data changes that I can either update these results or create new results. If I create new results, then I will create another item in my navigator. If I update these results, then I would not create a new item. I'm just basically overriding these. So we give the users the option. So you can either overwrite what you've got, or you can create a copy, or basically a new results there. Sometimes people want to create new results and then do a split view to see what the difference is on that. Okay. All right. I think we're good, Evan.
Yeah, I think we're good. I'm just monitoring through these and following up on some of your questions individually. In the past, we've also sometimes reached out to people, and it's a good reminder here as well. If you if you do have any questions, definitely let us know on the exit survey that pops up as we're leaving. But yeah, I think we're good. There's lots of good questions, and we'll be sending you out more information next week when we send out the recording and the slides. You can also find more information on minitab.com. So go ahead and look there, and you can see how to contact us there as well. Again, as I said, this is being recorded. We captured all your questions, so we'll be able to follow up with you. And we'll also be sending you a couple questions after this closes up. And I want to say, right before we go, on behalf of all of us at Minitab, my colleagues here and Jen, I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. And we really appreciate you guys taking the time to join us today.
Yes, and thank you, Evan. And thanks to the team for Eric and Evan and Silvana, everybody at Minitab who made this extremely easy for me. So thank you. And thanks for attending, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, everyone. Have a good one. Bye.